Hello, this is Pick. Today I'm freaking taking a look at the new Android console, the Ouya. Now, I'm sorry, this is kind of a bad shot. A lot of my camera equipment right now is kind of packed up as I'm making up my game room slash studio, so I didn't have a chance to get it all out and unpack everything. But here it is, kind of in a more grainier view. This is the controller. My take on it so far, I have been playing this for a while now. It's probably been here hooked up for 3 or 4 days. But my take on the controller so far has been it's a pretty decent controller. A lot of people have been giving it a lot of crap, saying it feels really cheap. I don't think that that's the case, at least not for me. The directional analogs here, they feel really good. They're nice and tight, and the pads are actually pretty big. Feels really good on your thumb. The one critique I had on it, or the one piece that I thought was a little bit negative, is the triggers here. They do feel cheap. They feel like you're going to break them, and they honestly, the pressure doesn't feel consistent. There's a little work to be done there. Interesting thing about the controller is there's no start and select buttons. They're gone. There's just this Ouya button, which is kind of like the connect button, like the PS button on the PS3 controller or the Xbox button on the 360 controller. And then this piece here actually acts like a trackpad, so you can at any point in time bring up a little mouse cursor, and you can select things that way. Aside from that, pretty standard controller. These shields here on the left and right, these actually pop off, and the batteries are behind there. I can't really do it one-handed, so just take my word for it. I was a little upset, little not upset. I was a little off-put, I guess, that it doesn't have lithium-ion battery in the controller. It's just batteries, but for $99, you really can't go wrong. So there's that. This is the console itself. You can see in perspective of my hand, it's fits in your palm. Boom. In the back of it here, you got a couple connector ports. I guess I haven't taken the sticker off there yet, but you have an Ethernet port, looks like mini USB, HDMI, and a full-size USB, as well as the power port. Aside from that, there's really nothing to do, or with the console. Everything's all digital, so there's no physical media that ever needs to attach. You can install thumb drives if you'd like to. I know that a lot of people are running emulators that way. So let's go ahead and jump into the console itself. We'll jump into the interface, and I'll
All right, so here, this is the icon, and that is the boot up noise for the Ouya. Here we are in the interface for it. One of the things that's really interesting here, let me get my controller synced up. There we go. One of the things that's interesting here is that you might have seen in previous videos, not of mine, but of other people's, where this is really jerky. The interface didn't run real well. That was because those were the Kickstarter units, and the interface, the firmware, wasn't upgraded to this point yet, and it was a little more jerky at that point. So you can see here, it's actually pretty smooth. Everything loads up pretty good. I'm on Wi-Fi. I'm not on Ethernet, and that will make a difference for my network. It does run a little bit better over Ethernet. Anyways, you get 4 categories here. You have play, discover, make, and manage. And I have some pros and cons through the interface. Stuff that I found, a lot of it that's good. Some things that I found that I didn't really like. So play, as you saw, this is a list of all the games that I've already downloaded. And the interesting thing about this list, which is kind of cool actually, is the last thing you've played shows up here in the upper left-hand corner, or it's the last thing that you've downloaded. In this case, it's downloaded because I haven't actually run Final Fantasy III yet. In fact, both these games here I haven't played yet, but I have been playing some of these other ones. You can see here there's actually some emulators in here as well. So yeah, the games are pretty decent. We'll get more into that, probably not so much in this video, but in subsequent videos I'll start covering some of these games and talking about them. Overall though, my gut feeling on some of these games is that it's like playing Android games, but a bit better because the controller support is more native and the graphics are a little bit more polished. So there's your play. Discover is your area where you can download new games. And this is one piece where I had a little bit of a criticism for Ouya. And that's because this first category of featured, that seems like a well-placed category. You can see here, these are the ones that Ouya themselves really wanted to show off, and that's great. And then you get into all these different categories that really don't make a lot of sense for the layperson. For instance, this is Killscreen's playlist. The layperson is going to say, who the hell is Killscreen? Or what's Penny Arcade, possibly? or the fact that Towerfall is the biggest game on Ouya right now, they might not know that, and so they're like, well, why'd the developer of Towerfall get his own playlist on Ouya? That doesn't make a lot of sense. So our founders, who is that? So you end up with all these. It seems redundant, but also it seems a little bit arbitrary that you have all these playlists for people that you may or may not know who they are. Then when you get down near the bottom, a couple of really good ones come up, and that's trending now, which is great because it's nice to see what other people are downloading, which I can say that these games are the bigger games, the more polished ones, the ones that have gotten a little more press. And then genres. Now, if it were me designing this, picking out what would go where, genres would either be number 1 or number 2, because that's your primary way of sifting through all the games. And you want to give your players access to everything. So you can see here, these are all the arcade and pinball type games. And I also had a little bit of a criticism with how things were being divvied up. I found some games that I didn't really think classified into one type or another. That's a little bit more subjective, though. I think that there wasn't really a logical argument behind that. It was just kind of like, well, I think it's more this category rather than that category. But as you can see, this is the best way to get into all of the games, or you can use search, which is by pressing Y. That'll bring up this, and you can enter things there. You can also use the mouse here if you'd like to. Not exactly easy to do. Anyways, I'll go ahead and go back. And you can connect Bluetooth and USB keyboards to the Ouya. It has native support for quite a few devices. So just plug in stuff in normally will work. You'll be able to input commands that way. There's also an app you can get, because it's not all games. You can get these few apps here. One of these, I think it's this one, Blueboard. This will allow you to connect your smart device, be it a tablet or a phone, as a touchscreen keyboard for your Ouya. So it's kind of a cool app there. Haven't used it myself yet, but the utility seemed pretty cool. There's a couple other ones here, and I know there's a lot of people that are side-loading apps as well outside of these ones. Plex is a really cool one that I'll probably show off at some point in time, because I actually use Plex to stream movies that I own or have here digitally at my house, and then you can stream them over your Ouya, or you can stream them over your smart device anywhere. Let's see what else is there to say about this. I think that's really it. There's one more category here, that's Sandbox, and I can't say that I'm really well informed here about what Sandbox is. This might be a new category, a category of new games, or it could be stuff that's like in beta. I'm unsure. I think Wind Up Night just came out, so I'm thinking Sandbox might be new releases. I think this Executive Star one is slightly new too. All right, so once you go through Discover, you can go to Make if you'd like to. Now I'll just select this once real quick because I'm going to have to back out. This is more for developers that want to play with Ouya to make a new game. Now, to me, it was really interesting that Make even existed on the front page, mostly because the average user of Ouya is not going to be a developer. And I think that in an ideal world, which is possibly what Ouya is thinking, yeah, there'd be a lot more developers out there, but there aren't that many. I mean, it's not even a tenth. It's probably going to be 1% or lower, maybe 1% today, and lower in the future as Ouya takes off, if Ouya really takes off. And so for that reason, I think that Make really shouldn't have been here on the front page. If anything, maybe put it off to the right-hand side somewhere and allow you to tab over to it, or just stick it under Manage. Play and Discover totally makes sense, and Manage totally makes sense, but Make, I'm not so sure it really needed to belong out here. Manage is your settings, and there's various different categories here. We'll go ahead and walk through some of these. You have an account, which when you sign up for Ouya, and I did this off camera, when you first boot your Ouya up, it updates the firmware, which takes a little while to do that. But then it also makes you put in either a payment form, be it a debit card or a credit card, or you have to put in a prepaid Ouya card redeem number. So a lot of people are pretty upset about that. I really didn't like that I had to put in my financial information into the system to boot it up. I understand why they're doing it that way. Actually, the Google Play Store had problems with people not making purchases simply because their account information wasn't readily available. And so it actually spread or I guess added to the apathy of not purchasing anything. Whereas with iTunes and iOS, most of the iPhone users already had all their information in from their iTunes account, and so people were able to make purchases very quickly. So for that reason, I can understand what Ouya is doing here. It was, to me, it's still kind of a bit of a hassle that I had to go find my credit card, go get my wallet, and put all my information in. But that's what's under payments there. Parental controls, well, I guess I'm not going to go any farther than this, but parental controls, all that really allows you to do at this point in time is to secure your system from purchases happening. And that's actually a whole nother piece of contention right now. The purchases in Ouya are not exactly programmed super well. So some of the weird situations are like some games are free only for a certain amount of time, say for an hour. And then at the end of that hour, a menu will pop up saying, do you want to purchase the game? Well, if you're feverishly playing a game and you're mashing a button, say, I don't know, the accept button, and that menu pops up, you could quickly buy the game without even realizing what you were doing. So with the parental controls, you're able to put a PIN number, which I've done here. It's behind this password. In so that your PIN number has to be entered every time you make a purchase. There's other problems with the purchases as well. My big piece of, we'll back out of this. My big problem with it is that when you go to make a purchase, I think things are out of order. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and keep moving forward. We'll go back to purchases and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and go to controllers. So you can see you can connect up to 4 different controllers. I purchased 2 controllers with my system, but one of them's on back order. So we'll hopefully see that one come in the mail pretty soon. But right now I only have one connected. You can connect Xbox 360 and PS3 controllers. They have varying degrees of effectiveness in the games. I kind of had a little bit of a wonky experience. They're not officially supported, but they do work. I was able to play a couple multiplayer games with my wife just using Xbox 360 controllers. It worked pretty well. Network, you can connect via Ethernet or Wi-Fi, and you know what, I'm just going to back out of that because it doesn't need any more explanation than that. Notifications, it's notifications for the system. There aren't any. And then in system, there's a couple different things here. We can get console info, system updates for when there are system updates. Last time I checked, there wasn't any. You can do a factory reset, and what's in advanced? So one of the interesting things about Ouya was during its beta release to all the Kickstarter supporters, they had a lot of these Android type menus left in there. From what I've seen, this is the last one. I couldn't find any more than this one, but this is mostly a menu that you probably just, the average person just shouldn't mess with. There's nothing really in here to mess with unless you're sideloading apps and messing with stuff like that. And I'm sure I'll have some tutorials and I'll have some guides on messing with these things and getting the most out of your Ouya in the future. But for right now, I really don't need to talk too much about this. So that's it for the whole menu. I mean, that's really all that makes up Ouya. The driver behind the console is really the purchase price, which is $99 for the console plus one controller. You get an HDMI wire in there and you get the power wire, and that's really it. But all the games on Ouya, the philosophy for them is that everything is free to some extent. So that might be free with in-app purchases. For the most part, what I've seen so far is paid apps that are either free for a demo section of the game, like Final Fantasy III, where only the first cave is free, and then it's a purchase price. And then there are usually a flat fee after that. In the case of Final Fantasy III, it's actually a $16 game. But some of the other ones like Muffin Night and Cannibalt, these games are $3. So let's go ahead and jump into Cannibalt. I want to talk real quick about the purchase method and show you what happens when I go to make a purchase with my code. So in Cannibalt, you get 5 credits. You get 5 lives per day. And I can upgrade to the full version. I'm not even going to play it. I'm just going to go ahead and say I want to upgrade and show you what happens. I'd like to upgrade. So when I say upgrade, it brings me to a menu like this. Now this is a developer-made menu. This is nothing about this is Ouya driven. Ouya didn't make any rules about what's here. So if I wanted to upgrade, I'd have to say yes at this point. But notice how on this screen there is absolutely no information about the price. And this is what's a little bit confusing to me. Because if I were to hit yes right now, I get asked for my PIN. Now my problem here is that in a lot of games, rather than saying yes, it says buy now. And because it didn't give me a price, it kind of makes me think, well, does that mean I'm buying it and they never gave me the price. What's going on there? And then to have them ask you for your pen before they actually show you the price, it just comes off as, I wouldn't necessarily say shady, but it's an out of order process that needs to be able, they need to be able to bring the price closer up. And that's another problem that they have is, let me back out of this. I'm not going to put my pen in right now because I don't feel like showing my pen over YouTube. If you go out to Discover and you're just looking at games, let's say Bard's Tale, a game that I don't have downloaded right now. If I had to click on it right here, you can see it gives you the suggested age, the megabytes, when it was updated, and a bunch of other information, and you can even get more information right here. And the problem is, there's no information about price. Now, Ouya kind of did that on purpose. They didn't want to put price information right out in front because they didn't want everybody to judge a game based on its price. They wanted you to get a feel for it. Part of the reason I think they're doing that is because there's been a decent amount of, I don't know, not official research, but unofficial research into game demos that basically say game demos hurt game sales. If you have a demo, it can do nothing but actually hurt you. And there's some logical rationale behind that. So what they've tried to do here is take the price out of the equation and say, you play the game, you get a feel for it, we'll give you the price once you're done. Now, I think that that's a noble approach. What they're really trying to do is connect players closer to games. But aside from its nobility, it comes off as shady because it's not really transparent. It's almost like, it kind of feels to people, first of all, like they're trying to hide the price. But moreover, not just hiding the price, it's like when you're playing the game and they're like, okay, your demo's expired. Would you like to purchase the game? And you finally do get to that price. It's almost like they surprised you with it. And there's almost a feeling of being offended by, oh, really? You want that much for this game? And oh, now you're asking me for money? It's almost the same effect that you have when you play a free with in-app purchase game or freemium games, as they're widely known, and you come to the realization that if you really want to progress further in the game, you're going to have to make a purchase. You kind of feel almost an offended feeling, and that could just be me, but I think that it's kind of a shocking, or at least if anything, it's actually taking you out of the game. It's de-immersing you from the game, bringing you back to the real world, and saying, guess what? Here's a financial transaction we would like you to make. So I think that they need to, even if they don't put it here on the very front page here, that's fine. Don't put the price there. But I really think that they need to be adding the prices. Oh, that's funny. I just got an error. They need to be adding the prices here somewhere. Maybe if you go into more info, you can dig in and find the price. They would have to, based on how the Ouya works, because there's a lot of different monetization methods here. There's in-app purchases, that the game's completely free. And then you could have a subscription model, or you could have a one-time purchase, or you have lots of different pay models. They'll have to have something in here that says, here's what the pay model is as a description, and then the cost associated to that pay model. And if it was in-app purchases, it would say this game is entirely free, but there's in-app purchases inside that are priced within the app. Something along those lines is what they'll have to do. But for right now, there's a lot of people that are struggling with the way that they're handling purchases. And I'm one of them. I think that I'll probably make purchases here in the very near future and buy some of these games, but I'm not going to like it. I don't like what they're doing, and it's not because it's different. It's because it's not exactly logical. They're trying to do something that's it doesn't make sense, even though their cause of what they're trying to do is noble. They're trying to get people more intimate with the games, and I think that they're having the opposite effect. So they need to do a little more research there. They need to listen to the customer sentiment, and then hopefully they'll change that. My overall take on the Ouya so far, after 3 or 4 days, is very positive. I actually think that people should buy this thing. It's $100 right now. Considering you can connect other controllers to it, I would recommend this console purchase. I think the controllers themselves are a little bit overpriced right now in retail. They're $50 a piece. My extra pre-order controller was only $30, and I think $30 for an extra controller, that's great. Considering the console itself's $99, $30 is a good price for controllers. I think that's the real big sticking point. But if you have Xbox 360 controllers and an adapter, you have to have the PC adapter, then I'd say Ouya's great. Go ahead and pick up an Ouya. Let me fire up a game and finish talking. But aside from that, this is not a regular console replacement game. This is definitely something to have in addition. This is more like the Wii. I mean, very few people bought a Wii and had just a Wii. Almost everybody had a PS3 and a 360 or a PS3 or a 360, and they had a Wii. This is the same deal. You're not going to have a PS4 or a Ouya. That doesn't make any sense. You're going to have a PS4 and an Ouya, and I totally recommend it if you're going to go that route. That's a definite right there. And I think, too, a lot of people are complaining, saying, well, you know, it's just an Android device and it's got a controller. I can just buy a controller and hook it up. No, it's not. It's not that. And I think the people that are saying that, they're the people that haven't actually used it yet. They haven't played with it. The graphics are better than the Android versions of games. You can see right now I'm playing Muffin Knight. This game looks better on Ouya, mostly because of the 1080p, than it did on Android. Not only that, but the games can be optimized for the device, which means that when you get your version that's on Ouya, it's going to run a lot better than it did on Android, mostly because who knows what Android device you have, or if you're running gingerbread, if you're running ice cream sandwich. So the developer has this wide target to meet. When you're developing for an Ouya, it's a single target, so they're going to be able to optimize a little bit better. Now, people are also complaining a little bit about the fact that Ouya's only got a Tegra 3 in it. I have read that this is an optimized Tegra 3. I think it's possibly been overclocked slightly. I haven't really had any performance problems. I'm going to be doing a little bit more stress tests here in the near future. I'm going to be checking out some of the emulators, particularly PPSSPP, which is the PSP emulator. That should be a really good indicator of how strong it actually is. My Asus Transformer Prime is a Tegra 3 device as well, and it seems to run things pretty well still, so I think that power isn't yet an issue. I think by next year, when they release their next version, which I'm assuming is going to end up being some form of Tegra 4, I think that'll probably be a much better console, but I don't necessarily think that means that you should discount this one, because to me, this one is running pretty good. The games that I've run so far, I haven't had a lot of issues with. So overall, I think Ouya's a buyer. I'm definitely going to be covering these games in the future. You're going to see a lot of content, and I really want to start doing a lot of the more how-to videos, because this game console has been developed as a hacker's dream. You know, you're supposed to be able to do whatever you want to with it, sideload apps, and kind of wedge things in as you see fit. And there's a lot of people that are already doing those things, and so maybe I'll kind of show that off and show what people are doing with it and how that all happens. So go take a look at Ouya. You can find it in EB Games, Best Buy, and I think Target has them as well. They're 99 bucks, so go check them out. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, this has been Pixel Freak.